This is what we call staking the hides. The machine that I'm using is called a Slocum Staker, and it was made in Germany and England. It's probably about a 75-year-old machine. It has an adjustment here on the bottom that raises and lowers the tension for how tight the arm pinches the hides. I modified this machine where it used to stretch leather and pull on it, and the opening in the middle there where the hide setting was there wasn't a piece of leather, so I switched the arms around and modified it for hair on so that it would pull the hair out. Seems a little scary keeping your hands and stuff so close to this, but you get kind of used to it for the most part. When you put the hide in, really you're not holding onto the hide, it's really your hips. I have my hips up against the machine, and that's what binds it, but it can pull it completely out of your hands. Kind of an over-the-shoulder shot here to show how it's pulling on it. And again, I can adjust the tension on how tight I want it. A thicker hide I will put less pressure on, like moose, which are real thick, but buffalo, cow hides are fairly thin, and so you have to tighten them up quite a bit. So I just want to go ahead and just break these edges, because that's what tends to be hard. They dry out quicker than the middle does, so you got to work your way around the hide, and be careful of the holes, because if it does grab a hole, then it will just rip it, and then you got to re-sew it again. So you can see some of the hide holes that I've already stitched up, but so this is just part of the process. After that, I move over to the furrier machine. It's a mutual furrier machine, and so it works kind of like a serger, and sews the hide shut. What you have to do is you've got to cut a diamond pattern into it, so a round hole of course won't sew shut. When I find a hole in the hide, either from a knife cut, that's usually what they're from, I've got to cut kind of a cat eye or football shape, and then it just does a locking stitch. When I pull down on the thread, it breaks it and locks it. So each hide has to be sewed. Boy, some hides I'll bet have over 20 or 30 holes in them from guys skinning them, and it makes it a little tough to keep the holes shut. If you don't sew the holes, when you go to oil the hides, it just soaks through. So I'm one of the few tanneries in the country that actually will take the time to stitch up all the holes in the hides, and then you have to cut the threads and burn them so that they're nice and tight. But you got to tuck the hair in here. It goes pretty quick. I used to sew all these by hands until I got this old machine, but it works out great. After the hides are stretched and sewed, I put them on my buffalo combing machine. This was another machine that was set up to be a buffing machine. It was a leather machine, and it had sandpaper on that big roller. And so I modified the front of it with a roller to put the hide over it, and then I went to a milling machine. I guess it was a wool mill machine, and they had these carding belts. And so I went ahead and wrapped those around that steel wheel. It took me a while to figure out exactly what size of milling belts that I needed to have, or carding belts that I had. The first ones were so tough they would grab the hide, pull it in, and just rip it. But this saves so much work by combing the hides out, the knots and things, and it just saves hours of work. But again, it's a matter of just hand-eye coordination. So once I get all these combs, then I'll have to put them in the drum, tumble them, cage out, cage them again, and then I go through this process again 1 or 2 more times, and then finally I'll just hand comb the buffalo. It's a lot of work.